Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Okay, so have you ever thought about, what if you only had to get one shot a year to, prevent some big illness?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
And when I found this research about this new HIV prevention drug, well, I was really interested, to say the least.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential there for sure.
Yeah, it's a new type of this drug called Lenacapavir, and the early stuff looks really good. There was this article from Science X Network about a study that was in the Lancet.
Oh, wow, the Lancet.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is. It's a well-respected journal, and they're talking about this once-a-year injection to help prevent HIV.
That's huge.
Yeah. So before we go too far, can we kind of break down what lenacapavir is and how it works? I mean, I know some people listening probably know about pre-exposure prophylaxis,
Right.
or pre-PP.
Pre-P, right.
But I want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So lenacapavir is a type of pre-exposure prophylaxis drug. Basically, it's a medication that people who don't have HIV can take to prevent getting it, if they're exposed.
Right.
And what makes lenacapavir different from the pills that a lot of folks are taking now is that it's an injection, and just one of those injections can, protect you for quite a while.
Yeah. And so far it's been every 6 months, right?
Right, every 6 months.
But this new research is looking at if we can just do it once a year.
Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit more about the study? What were the researchers trying to figure out?
Okay, so this was what we call a phase 1 trial. Basically, it's an early study to see if a new drug is safe and, if people can tolerate it. So they weren't actually testing if it could, prevent HIV at this point.
Right.
They wanted to see how the drug, acted in the body, how long it stayed around, and if there were any, bad side effects.
Gotcha. So this is kind of setting the stage, making sure it's safe enough to keep going with, bigger trials and stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
So what'd they find?
Well, there were 40 volunteers in the study, and they were all HIV-negative. They all got one injection of the new lenacapavir, and then the researchers watched them, over time. And what they found was that the drug stayed in the body for, get this, up to 56 weeks.
Whoa, a whole year.
A whole year, yeah. So that means that this whole once-a-year thing, it might actually be possible.
That's amazing. Were there any, warning signs about side effects?
Actually, one of the best things was that the new version seemed really well tolerated. There weren't any, serious bad events, and anything people felt was mostly mild, just a little soreness where they got the shot. So from a safety perspective, it's looking pretty good.
Okay, so it's looking safe so far, and it looks like it can stay in your system for a whole year. That's a great start. How does this long-acting version of lenacapavir actually work, in the body? I mean, how's that different from the pills people take every day?
Well, it all comes down to how lenacapavir works at the really small level. See, it's in a class of drugs called capsid inhibitors. So it goes after the specific part of the HIV virus called the capsid, which is kind of like the shell that protects the virus's genetic material.
Okay.
So by messing with the capsid, lenacapavir stops the virus from copying itself and spreading in the body. And that's how it can last for so long, why it can be an injection every 6 months or maybe even once a year with this new way of doing it.
Okay, so it basically stops HIV from making more copies of itself all year. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, it's definitely exciting, and it could really change how we prevent HIV, but got to keep in mind this is still really early research.
Yeah, you're right. We got to talk about the limits of this study. I mean, it was only a small group, and they didn't actually get exposed to HIV to see if, the drug really worked to prevent it. So what else should we keep in mind when we're looking at these early results?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This phase 1, that was just the first step. We need to see how this new formulation does with bigger groups of people, more diverse, and people who are really at risk for HIV.
Yeah.
And really importantly, the next research needs to look at, is this once a year thing really as good at preventing HIV as the twice a year one we already have?
Okay, so it's more about making sure this long protection actually works in the real world.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, sometimes you hear about some new tech and it sounds amazing, but then, it doesn't really live up to the hype.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's important to be hopeful but careful. We need more info before we can say for sure this once-a-year shot is, a total game changer.
Right. But say, those later trials do show it works.
Yeah.
What kind of impact could this have on, like, the whole fight against HIV? I mean, we've got pills every day and now the shot every 6 months. How much of a difference could this once-a-year thing make?
Well, one of the biggest things could be, like, people actually sticking with the treatment. Think about it taking a pill every single day. That can be tough. Life happens. You forget. It's a pain. Even with the shots, every 6 months, you still got to remember those 2 appointments.
Yeah.
But once a year, that's like a flu shot. You go once, you're good for the whole year.
Yeah, it's almost like, you don't have to think about it as much.
Right. And that could be huge for certain people. Like, think about communities where it's hard to get to a doctor or even just to a pharmacy. Going in once a year, that's a lot easier than having to go all the time.
Yeah, that Science X Network article, it talked about that too, like how this could be good in places where, there's still a lot of stigma about HIV, makes it hard to get prevention stuff.
For sure. The less people have to deal with the healthcare system, the less chance there is for that stigma to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and if more people are, like, consistently protected because they're sticking with it better, wouldn't that, like, change how much HIV is spreading around too?
Yeah, it could definitely. I mean, if more people are protected, that means less chances for the virus to jump to someone else. We've seen this with other prevention stuff. When people can get it and they actually use it, consistently, new infections go down.
Makes sense. It all connects. But even if this new formulation turns out to work great, is safe, easy to use, I'm guessing there are still going to be challenges, to actually getting it to everyone who needs it.
You're hitting on something really important. I mean, even the best drug in the world, it only works if people can actually get it. Cost is a big one. If this new thing is too expensive, a lot of folks who could benefit, they won't be able to afford it.
Yeah, and then there's, like, actually making enough of the drug and getting it all over the place. That's a huge logistical thing.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about, more research, more development. We still got to figure out the long-term effects of this thing. This phase 1, it only looked at a pretty short time. We need those bigger, longer studies to really know.
It's like a reminder that science, it's a process, not just like an endpoint. But it's amazing to see how far we've come with HIV prevention. I was reading about, like, the beginning of the epidemic, and the progress is just incredible.
It really is. And research like this, it gives us hope that we can keep making progress, keep moving toward ending the epidemic.
Yeah, I hope so. So for our listener who's been, following along on this deep dive with us, what's, like, the main takeaway here? What should they be thinking about when they consider, what this new Lenacapavir could mean?
Well, I think the big takeaway is, we could be really close to, like, a big change in HIV prevention. This new Lenacapavir, with that possibility of just one shot a year, it could be huge. But we got to be, excited but cautious. We need to see what those bigger trials say, the ones that are more in depth, before we can really say for sure how well it works and what it means for everyone.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. It's easy to, caught up in the excitement of something that sounds like a big breakthrough, but we got to let the science do its thing.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot can happen between, like, these early findings and, something that's actually available as a treatment.
For sure. And I think it's also important for folks to remember that, like, science doesn't happen all by itself. We need the money for research. We need access to healthcare. We got to deal with the stigma around this stuff. All that's important when we're talking about, ending the HIV epidemic.
Right. It's not just, like, science alone can solve this. It's got to be a bunch of different things, a bunch of approaches working together. Like you said, the social stuff, the economic stuff, all the things that play a role in HIV spreading.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this new Lenacapavir, it's got tons of potential, but it's not like a magic solution. We got to keep putting money into research, education, making sure people get the care they need, all that, if we want to really make a difference.
That's a really good point. Well, this has been really interesting. I've learned a lot about what's new in HIV prevention, so thanks for that. But before we go, I want to leave our listener with something to think about. Imagine, a world where preventing HIV is as easy as getting one shot a year. What do you think that would mean for, for people, for communities, for how we're doing with global health? How would it change, like, how we think about HIV prevention as a whole society?
That's a big question, and I hope everyone listening will really spend some time thinking about that. The future of HIV prevention, it's happening right now, and we can all be a part of it.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into HIV research. It's really amazing to think about what could be possible. And to our listener, thanks for being here with us. Until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.